Baseline. Baselines are done to establish benchmarks for the chosen level of indicators. They provide data on their initial status so that subsequent monitoring and evaluation can assess the effects and impacts of the project. So we can start with a set of indicators, and the baseline will give us different levels or values for each one of these indicators. So in the example, we can have 4 indicators, and here we have the project goal. So what the baseline tells us is where the indicator is at the beginning of the project, but also gives us information on how much more work we need to do with each one of the indicators. What is valuable about this information is that we help identify those indicators that are going to need more work and more resources in order to achieve the goal, and other ones that may not need as much as it's required. That is important in terms of how we are organizing our resources in the project. The main focus of the baseline is on collecting and analyzing pre-intervention data. That is important to have the baseline before the project begins, and indicators at the goal and outcome level. So in our example, we can look at an indicator at the beginning of the project, and on the subsequent evaluations, and as we start collecting information, we can see how this indicator starts to change until at the end of the project we can see its final position. This is the idea that the baseline then helps us see what was the change that created by the project. Why is it important to have a baseline? It's not only the starting point for a project, but helps us establish the priority for the areas and planning. It also helps us create the attribution, meaning what are the changes that were caused by the project on the group of beneficiaries. And important too is that baselines are used for evaluation and are donor requirements. When we're looking at baseline data, we need to look at 2 sources and types of information. The primary data is the one that's collected through the use of surveys, meetings, focus groups, discussions, or any other methods that involve a direct contact with respondents. That means that either the project team or partners have a direct contact with the project participants and are able to collect the data directly from the source. Secondary data is existing data that has been collected by others for another purpose. The idea is that in many cases, when it's too difficult or too expensive to have primary data, we use secondary data. But it's only an alternative source of information as long as it meets the requirements of information of the project in terms of its reliability, credibility. Secondary data is a good source of information. Another element that we need to look at is the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. The first one looks to uncover more about the context, the perceptions, and the quality of the intervention. And that means the opinions people have about a particular experience or conditions as they view it. So when we are in direct contact with beneficiaries, we try to express more about their emotions, their feelings, how they see the project, how they perceive it, because that helps us understand many other type of information that sometimes is not easily captured. While quantitative data is usually to measure the status or changes on a specific indicator and provides us with numerical results. So it will be the numbers and the values that we see in the charts that give us an idea that how many people completed a training, how many people passed the certification. But the qualitative data tells us whether or not people liked the training or they feel comfortable with the trainers. That is an opportunity for the project to look at information that can help us improve it. Comparison groups is another element that is very important for a baseline. It's data about a group of beneficiaries not exposed to the project activities, but they are similar to the project target group. They are a group that eventually help us attribute a observable change due to project interventions. That means that at the beginning of the project, we collect data on those 2 groups. Our beneficiaries, the people or participants that will be involved in the project, and those who will not be involved in the project. And we collect the data with 2 groups, And what we see is that in the first group, we see how that group behaves when they are not receiving any activities or resources from the project. While the other group that is receiving the training, we can see an improvement in the quality of their projects or the quality of the work they're doing, and then we can see that change. That is a change that the project can attribute to its activities, and it validates the logic of the project design. Some key considerations in terms of the baseline. You need to devote enough time to research and plan for your baseline. Make sure you have clear goals and indicators. Avoid collecting excessive and non-specific information. And sometimes baseline studies are very comprehensive and expensive studies that collect a lot of data that in many cases the project never uses it again, not even an evaluation. And it's important to be very specific and conscious about how is going to be the use information we collect. If we are not going to use it, we need to really consider whether or not we're going to collect it. Find opportunities to involve key stakeholders. That's the process of getting their participation and getting their buy-in and support to the project. Make sure you're collecting data related to a single point in time. What I mean by that is that eventually how you collect the data and specific periods of time might have an influence on how the baseline changes over time. And look out for errors in sampling, making sure that you're not collecting too little information from too very few individuals that might not be representative of the larger group.